I always forget to do that. That's good. So, first item on the agenda is we do have a quorum. I'd like to do, since most of us only met in, well, with the turnover in the last election, most of us only met by Zoom. We just go around the room real quick and introduce yourself and the town you're with, and I know we have one member on Zoom, so I think that'd be helpful to everybody, so. We'll start.
Perfect. I'm Patrick Roy from the town of Roxbury.
Todd Curricello from the town of Goshen.
And the Carbon City Joint.
Matt Riska from Norfolk.
Chris Johnstone from Colton.
Henry Todd from the town of Canaan.
Charlie Crotty, town of North Canaan.
Denise Rapp, Town of Litchfield.
Tom White, town of Morris.
I'm Don Stein, town of Barkhamsted. And Jim Brinton, you're on there somewhere, right?
Jim Britton, Town of Washington. Thanks, Don.
Hopefully we'll get some more people to join us, but it is nice to be in person, so hopefully the trends will continue and we can do this more, because I've always found, not only am I the oldest guy in the room, but I'm probably the longest serving selectman also. But having the in-person meetings, the ability to network, the ability to compare notes, I found invaluable over the years. So hopefully we can get back into that scenario. So with that, do we have anybody from the public on Zoom who wishes to speak?
Mr. Chair, it's Hetty Ayers with Eversource.
Go ahead, Eddie.
Morning, everyone. Hope you can hear me and see me. I just wanted to give a quick plug and reminder for Eversource's upcoming annual ERP meetings that we're hosting actually next week. You should have been notified by your community relations specialist back in March that these were coming, but just as a heads up, so the Western Region meeting is this coming Thursday, so a week from today, April 28th from 10 to 12. And then there's also a statewide evening session that's on Wednesday, April 27th, and that will be from 6 to 8 p.m. These are virtual and will be hosted on the GoToMeeting platform. So if you did not receive that invitation, I would just encourage you to reach out to your community relations specialist and they can forward that link to you. And we'll be following up with all of the towns afterwards, but just wanted to make sure that you had that option to participate live if you'd like to. Thank you.
Named a replacement for Kevin Whitcoach yet, since I know he moved into a different job at Eversource.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
They named a replacement for Kevin Whitcoach in his role, since I know he has a new job with Eversource.
So we're in the process of hiring several new folks. So we're kind of covering, we've kind of divided and conquer. So some of us are covering from Kevin, for Kevin, and so a new person is hired. So right now it's just temporary coverage. So you all should have been notified if you had Kevin as your community relations specialist. I know I've got one of his towns, Daniel Davis is on the phone as well. And I know he's got some too, but it's been frankly divided far and wide because Kevin had quite a few towns, and we've also honestly we're losing another person also to our transmission group, and we just lost Kelly Grant as well. So lots of transitions. So again, temporary coverage, at least I'm assuming for a month or so, and then we'll be sending out notification once those folks are onboarded and trained.
And I heard a rumor Steve Silver's retiring.
That's not a rumor, that's true. And actually he's on vacation right now, which is why he's not here today. But I believe, I'm not sure the exact date, but I want to say it's probably like the end of May. So what was that?
Already met with Daniel.
Yeah,
So
I met with Daniel also, but
Yeah.
I didn't know, I know he's temporary for some of the towns he was covering, so.
Right, exactly.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I think some of the other people are on the agenda, so is there anybody else though? All right, Rob, over to you.
Just, Brent Colley and Gordon Ridgway, looks like they just joined in.
Oh, good.
Make sure we're muted here. All right, and we need an agenda. I have a few printed out now.
Yeah, my computer decided it doesn't want to turn on.
All right. Well, thank you. Nice to meet some of you 3D for the first time, maybe in some cases, although I think I've met everybody for the most part in the home and home series, I would call it. I'm gonna come visit the, your town just to learn a little bit more about the town and Mike. And talk about the COG and what's, you know, what's valuable for the COG and what we could do better or things we could do more for you, obviously, leading into that. We've been short-staffed for the last, well, I guess it goes back about 3 months or so. Excuse me. We've been preparing for a transition with Jocelyn leaving in December. Darlene retired in December. Janelle went up. I should have got myself a water. Janelle went off to do her own consulting in January. So we have Sarah Better, who took over for the financial office manager, and myself. Obviously, we're in various points of learning curve still. Our combined institutional knowledge here is 12 months, so it's been a little bit of a challenge over the last several months for sure. Having said that, we did recruit and advertise for an assistant director, and we did have interviews. I was out last week, but we had interviews prior to that. Great pool of candidates, really impressive. I was a little caught by surprise by some of the candidates that we had that put in their credentials for this position. And we're having an executives committee meeting right after this meeting and to talk about our candidate of choice and the package we could possibly put together. And I'm hopeful that if that works out, that we could potentially have someone in here, a high caliber employee in here within the next couple of weeks in the middle of May. So timing is great, because if it's any later than that, I'm really running into the whole budget season and some of the issues that go along with that. So I'm very excited about that, and looking forward to kind of moving on. Just a couple of quick updates on just a reminder, the CAMA data. You may have heard the CAMA data that you have, the mapping associated with the CAMA data as far as for tax purposes. All that needs to be submitted to the COG by May 1st. We've been in contact with your assessors for that information. So just, you know, if you haven't sent that in, or if there's an issue, just let me know. It's a state statute that would be in by May 1st. The natural hazard mitigation plan, local approvals. I've received a great number of those from everybody. But again, there are some towns that are still outstanding. The faster we have that in, the better off we're going to be, because that's the final step for approval through FEMA. So just a reminder on those local approvals, they have to be done by your legislative body. And lastly, a quick update on our long-going expansion to the into the unfinished space over here. Just a reminder for some that maybe not aware, there's a plan basically to expand the offices down, and I think 3 offices down on this end here, expand the hallway this way, and then move the conference room into unfinished space over there next door. Creates a bigger conference room. That plan has been kind of ongoing for quite a while now. Currently, we're hopefully going to get it to the finish line sooner than later. We don't know what the cost difference is going to be from the original estimate we received before my time, around this time last year. But I can say that one issue we have is the Goshen Housing Trust owns the building. There's ongoing work here, and the roof needs to be done, and they're having some delays with the roof contractor. That needs to be done before we do any expansion next door. So it's kind of the one thing that's hanging us up right now. But I'm hoping that maybe we'll have that expansion work underway this summer, hopefully sooner than later. So it would be good to have that transition done at the same time as our staffing transition. So that's really the only updates I have. If you have any questions or anything else that you might have on your mind.
All right, municipal forum. I guess I'll go first. We'll go around the table, then we'll go to Zoom. I will echo what Rob said about staffing. We interviewed 5 people. They were all excellent. Henry and I and Mike Connor and Rob were the interview committee. And we're hopeful that the top candidate, we were very close on the package and salary, and we're hopeful today that we can come up with a package that'll get this person started very soon. One of the things we're getting more serious about, at least a few of us are, you're familiar with Northwest Connect, I think, most people are. And we're starting to see some activity from a couple of the major carriers, I've started an internet survey to a company called Certex in town. I think Henry's been talking to them a little bit. So we're starting to look at what we can do as a region to bring high-speed broadband. Some of the towns are fortunate enough that their cable companies bringing fiber optic to them. That's 8 of the towns in the region. The other 13 are not. And there's also been conversation with New Milford and Woodbridge and some of the other towns. So what I would like to do, TBD, agenda TBD, is have a meeting of the COG members plus other interested towns to talk about what might be possible and in order to bring high-speed broadband to the region, to cover the unserved and underserved areas. There is Northwest Connect through a grant that Jocelyn got for the Economic Development Corporation, has money for consultants. Kim Maxwell, who you've heard from before at these meetings, is also working hard on a strategic plan for broadband. So I think what we have to do as a region, as individual towns, is figure out a way we can collaborate, minimize the cost, maximize the benefit. And that's going to be a little bit of a heavy lift for most of us. But I think if we don't start that dialogue now, it'll never happen. And from what most of us see, even if I pay extra for Charter to get what's supposedly faster internet, it still doesn't have the bandwidth. It doesn't always work. The upload speed is terrible. So you'll be hearing between Henry and I and Northwest Connect, Kim Maxwell, we will be setting up a meeting, hopefully sometime in the next couple of weeks, just to talk about broadband and what we might do. There's a lot of options. Like some of the carriers are reaching out to us, but it might be better if we did a municipal network. It's hard to tell. But if we don't start the dialogue now, it's never going to happen. So that's upcoming, and hopefully one of the Rob or the new person will become sort of like Jocelyn. Jocelyn worked very hard with Northwest Connect. And she worked very hard on everything, but Northwest Connect was one of her activities. So we're hoping to take advantage of the COG staff once they get closer to having enough staff to support that activity and work with the towns and work with the carriers to see what makes sense. I know, Eleanor, you're lucky. Optimum supposedly is putting fiber everywhere in Torrington. And I forget who the other towns are, but
Frontier.
go.
Frontier.
Yeah, Richfield.
We already have fiber in town,
Do you have fiber?
Yeah.
Where?
up and down Route 463, so now, yeah, and now Alice Optum's will be putting in the big, I call them transformers, but the big boxes on Beach Street and East Street North to
Charter has no interest whatsoever, and they cover a number of towns in the area. So it varies all over the place, and then you get out to Kent and Sharon and Salisbury.
Or Charter.
Yeah.
The
and
entire town is Charter.
when I talked to Charter, they said, oh yeah, you can buy higher speed internet. I said, okay. And it's not worth the extra $10 a month.
No.
Which I pay anyway, but it's still not worth it, so. Last thing, like everybody else, we're in our budget season. We have our town meeting May 3rd. And we're fortunate this year that we didn't get whacked by our regional high school. New Hartford got whacked, Colebrook got whacked the hardest, I think, Norfolk. And so we're lucky this year, but we're gonna show no tax increase for our residents. Which is, we're using some ARPA money for capital. And with the minus, or basically a zero increase for the high school, which is unheard of, we're gonna be able to have no tax increase. So that should make my town meeting very easy this year.
No tax increase because the grand list went up to offset the increase, or is it a flat budget?
The grand list went up enough, and the
Right.
use of ARPA for capital
Mhm.
to offset any potential tax increase.
Same.
The selectmen's budget is up about 2%. The elementary school's up about 2%. The high school's up 0, which is
Mhm.
unheard of for us. And it's basically, change in population. And so, between all of that and using ARPA money and the grand list, it covers those increases.
Yeah, well, speaking of school budgets, Region 6 came in flat again. Morris went down slightly. Goshen probably caught a break this time around, and Warren's taking a hit. So our budget, we hope, is going to be a flat mill rate. Don't anticipate any increase, but we do have a BOF meeting tonight and an ARPA meeting tonight, so see how that goes. That's it.
That's it. Okay, so For Litchfield, actually, our mill rate is expected, if the budget is approved as presented, to go down 0.6 because our grand list went up so much because of motor vehicles, like most everybody. Although our real estate did go up almost 11 million and motor vehicles went up 29 million. So even if motor vehicles, next year goes down to more of a realistic number, we're still on the upside. But my selectmen's budget did go up about 4%. The state partnership plan for Litchfield went up 10%. We just found out yesterday, increase. Do you get that also? Are you part of that? Yeah, self-insured. So that's a surprise. We thought it might be 8 and they came back at 10.5. So that wasn't, that didn't make me that happy. We did submit the Litchfield, Morris, Goshen, and Warren submitted the study group's recommendation about possible regionalization to become Region 20. So we're waiting to hear back from the state. We share a first superintendent, so we also got a 0% increase this year for Litchfield. I think he does a tremendous job, and hopefully, I'm supportive of that consolidation. I just think going forward, we can't sustain the schools as they are. We have less than 800 kids for Litchfield K through 12. And my daughters graduated 2010, and at that point, they had about 1,200 kids. So it's gone down 50%, and I don't see it, going up anytime soon. And we're working on our ARPA allocations. Right now, we're actually this afternoon, we're figuring out nonprofits and businesses that due to COVID have a loss of income. We have right now just 8 applicants. We've allocated $150,000 total. So we're gonna have a second round of applicants to hopefully help some of those nonprofits. And we recently passed a right to farm ordinance that was petitioned by town meeting. There was 110 people in attendance and it passed 60 to 50. So it was a very spirited conversation, but it was actually a great town meeting. It was everybody was very respectful and it was awesome. And then tomorrow, or actually Saturday, our Sustainable Litchfield group, which has gotten the bronze and silver certification, is having a Earth Day to highlight all the work they've done and bring in the partners that work with us to achieve what we did. That's it.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Wish you could say the same for North Canyon. We're getting hammered. Our Region 1 budget is $745,000 for the town of North Canyon this year. Big time. So I actually got shot down in my selectmen's budget. I had to knock $100,000 off because that went up. So I got to present it again next Wednesday night to the public forum. We kicked the Board of Finance kicked it back last week, so we made some cuts that few people are not going to be happy in organizations, but we have no choice. And I know they're looking at raising our mill maybe a couple mil from 29 up to 32 because of the high school budget. Last year it was 400,000. This year is 745. And I think next year is projected for the same.
I'm gonna use you as an example when I go try to pass my budget next Thursday.
There's 326 kids go to Housatonic and North Canaan sends 124. So we're getting whacked pretty good compared to the other towns. So we have a uphill battle. And organizations are looking for money, but it only can be stretched so far, unfortunately, Looking to try to get raises in for some of the town crew. We did a survey through the COG. Our town is the lowest of the 20-some towns, and we're trying to get it up a little bit. And I went big time 9%. Actually, I knew I'd get it shut down, so we compromised back at 6%. But it's just getting our 8 town employees into the average of the rest of the towns. It's just an uphill battle, and it's still not going to do it. So make a deal. Hopefully next year we'll, maybe go 4% or something instead of like a normal 2% or 2.5%, and just on it. So that's to keep the town people happy. And a lot of our elected officials, not even close to making what the scenarios around the other towns, and including myself. But like I say, I'm not even looking for money. I'm just to help out the town, and everything. So we gotta be battle. So it's gonna be interesting the next budget meeting, and then present it to the town, but hopefully to my Board of Finance. So they told me to cut, so I cut. I was 275, I brought it down to 175,000. So on that, it's just unfortunate with the high school budget. We pay 40% of the region budget for a little town of 3,100 people because of the number of students.
we'll get through it one way or the other. There may be a few roads not getting done this year and repaired, but be a lot of patching, but we'll get through it. You know, we're using the American Rescue money, but that's kind of for upgrades to our town hall, other buildings that have been neglected over the years. And yeah, we probably use it for this, but you know, it takes them out of rainy done fund to do it, but it's a tough budget to balance, and we could use that money, but then we're neglecting, you know, our town hall needs upgraded. There's some other old buildings in town that need upgraded, and we use that money for that and go from there. But that's our saga at Northgate, Henry.
Well, we went through that for the last several years. We, over a 2-year span, we had an increase in our high school budget of 550,000. And fortunately, we had a pretty large surplus of operating funds. And, so we kind of weathered that without huge increases. This year, our budget, we're having our budget hearing a week from today, which is always a pleasurable experience for all involved. And then we're having our town meeting probably sometime in mid-May, but I don't anticipate any problems. Our surplus is back up to, you know, we're the second smallest town in the state, so we're up to about 900,000 in surplus. So we'll weather without any increase in that. We have continued our fight to put some affordable housing in town. It's such a popular topic with a few of our residents. But we've just applied for the next, if we get the grant, then we'll be ready for final construction. We're on step 4 or 5 on this, so we're pushing that along. You know, and everything seems to be going relatively well. But, you know, once you, the small cities grants stir, it's kind of like poking a stick in a hornet's nest. But we're weathering it, and pushing it forward. So hopefully this year we'll get the grant. Finish that up. That's it.
Well, for Colebrook, as Don alluded to, our Region 7 budget went up considerably. And I'm the new selectman in town, and for the last 4 years, we've had no mill rate increase. So I'm up against the battle with I came up with a 6.6% budget increase for the Board of Selectmen. And unfortunately, we didn't get that much money in ARPA, not like Barcaves did in some of the other towns.
Well, that's because it's Don. Don't feel bad.
Yeah.
He gets all the grants. He gets the fluffy ARPA money.
So
The
we're-
smallest town.
Yeah, so we're hoping,
You're just jealous, that's all.
yeah. We just formed an ARPA committee, so I'm hoping to use that money for some of our capital projects. And we've got our Board of Finance passed and approved all of our budgets, the selectmen budget, the Region 7 and our Board of Ed budget. So we go to our budget hearing May 2nd with a referendum on May 3rd for if that passes. And then we've got 3 bridge projects kind of in the process of moving along. One is ready to go, but waiting for state funding before we start that. And we hope to go out to bid on 2 other bridges next year. And that's going to require us to take out a bond because of the cost of it. And that's about it.
Norfolk, we met with our Board of Finance Tuesday night. Our increase is in our budget is going to be about 3.5% this year, which is not too bad. We have 2 bridge projects that'll be coming in next year as far as payments for those. Norfolk is kind of a construction zone right now with 2 bridges going on. Aquarium's putting in a 7,000-foot water main from their facility which is actually in Canaan, all the way to Route 272, so it's kind of a mess. Our Haystack Woods Affordable Housing Project was approved for CDBG money at 1.4 million. We met with the Northwest Housing Council had invited the Commissioner of Department of Housing out, which we had a meeting at the hub in Norfolk 2 weeks ago. Very enthused about our project, which is a net zero, 10-unit net zero affordable home ownership project. So we have additional funding that will be coming in from the Department of Housing for that, which is really a unbelievably great effort on the part of the Foundation for Norfolk Living. We have a solar project, a 5-megawatt solar project that we're going to be putting in at our transfer station that we'll have to vote on at our town meeting on Monday, May 9th, which I don't think we'll have too much opposition for that. So a lot going on, a lot of projects in place. We too have an ARPA group. We have spent some of those funds on a couple of things, and we have started a business, an assistance to business grant project. So we'll keep funds available for businesses that were hardest hit during COVID. And then hopefully we'll use some of those funds for a tanker truck for our fire department, that a portion of that cost that will be taking on in 2023. So that's about it.
So in the city of Torrington, I think I just keep updating where we are in progress with our high school construction. Hope to have a shovel in the ground this fall. Brownfield grants, we were very fortunate this past spring to receive two funding streams to remediate key properties that are located in the gateways of the city on Route 4 right off of Route 8 and on Route 4 coming down from the Goshen area. They've been blighted property, so we're pretty excited about redevelopment of those. One will become a business park. The other one is Vinny's Restaurant and Pizzeria that they're creating a banquet space out of. Penrose, the mixed income commercial space construction is moving along very quickly. They'll open up the leasing opportunities late summer, and hope, and the way that things are looking, they think they'll be fully occupied by December. There's such a demand for this housing. The things that I wanted to push back, or not push back, but put out to you for answers is anybody impacted by the motor vehicle mill rate cap that's proposed? You're all under 29.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Now
I
we're
think-
looking at, what is it, 32.65 now?
Is that what it is?
Yeah, 32.65, because it'll probably be pushed through under Senate Bill 9. Because, which is the governor's piece, because the other two bills pretty much almost died. And then they just kind of, they'll take those out and they'll end up sticking those through in the budget cycle and then end up in the implementer bill probably. So it looks like it's gonna settle at about 32.65.
We're just about there. We're over 29, so we're like 31.5, something like that.
Yeah. I know for the city of Torrington, when I saw in the governor's budget, he was to fill the gap for the city of Torrington, where we're at currently at 46. It was a little over $4.5 million, and I can't even settle my budget. That's too big of a gap for me to guess on. So we're really, we're sitting on our budget until the state wraps up. How about, I'm listening to your, the Board of Education budget increases. Did any of you experience a jump in your enrollment since the pandemic? Is that?
We did.
Yeah. We went up with just a small amount.
Yeah.
Ours is small. A lot of kids are either being homeschooled or in private school. They're,
We advertise them to move to Burlington, so we're good.
yeah,
I
well, all
think
the
they
kids
moved
go
to
to another.
Torrington.
school.
Yeah.
It went
We'll
up.
take the old people.
Yeah.
They moved to Colbrook too.
Oh,
That's
well,
good.
I'll
Like
share
that,
the
yeah.
pain. My Board of Education submitted their budget, April 15th was the deadline for them. Their budget increase is a 6% increase. They submitted a budget, the current budget is 76 million. They've submitted a budget for 82 million.
That's your BOE?
Yeah, my Board of Ed.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, so I know I have heart palpitations saying it out loud. So yeah, my budget is just a mess and, you know, we've got a lot of work to do. But we always get through it, you know, and we have to establish some goals. I think I have to be realistic. You know, when we look at our ARPA funding and our spending strategies, I can't keep creating these cliffs with one-time revenues, you know, so I have to be realistic about that. But I also know is, I so respect the original intent of that legislation and pushing those funds to the communities that are, you know, in need, our not-for-profits, our small businesses, you know, dedicating resources for mental health and addiction services. So we are setting aside just about $2 million to provide grant opportunities for our community partners in those areas. I think it's critical for us to do that. And then we're trying to be very careful to make sure that any of that ARPA spending is really truly one-time expenses. If I peel away, you know, a one-time expense that, you know, gets me 20 years of a life cycle on a building or a piece of equipment or something. So that's how we're really focusing our ARPA spending strategies. Cannabis legislation is really the big thing for us right now. We called for a joint meeting, no pun intended, of our Board of Safety, our City Council, and our Planning and Zoning Commission last night. This is the second one that we've done. I called for this meeting on April 20th, and immediately my economic development
Oh,
director
it's
said, "You
420.
can't do
Yeah.
that."
Oh,
I said, "Why
wow.
not?
Does everybody know
What's
420
what's
is?
wrong with that date? Apparently it was a cannabis holiday.
I learned about that. My daughter went to college in California and the advertisements for the apartment said, they're 420 friendly. So I said, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Like, I had no idea. That means,
Come on.
yeah. I had no idea. It was like 10 years ago.
So, so where we are with adoption of whether or not we're ready to allow for cannabis establishments in the community, our boards want to wade into this very slowly. We're under a moratorium right now. Moratorium goes through September of this year, but the Planning and Zoning Commission is going to draft regulations just so that the public has an idea of what would regulations look like for something like this. You know, do we want them to stay 1,000 feet from city parks, schools, churches, stuff like that? And then we're going to do several public hearings that we really need the public to come out and speak on. Because frequently, Planning and Zoning Commission meetings really fly under the radar until you try to do affordable housing. And, you know, and then it's a headline in the newspaper and everybody's mad at you because, oh, well, I didn't know you were gonna do that. So we're gonna try to do several public hearings, allow for the public to speak, get this wrapped up well enough in advance so that if somebody wanted to petition to force this on a ballot for referendum, they could. So over the next few months, you'll probably hear much about that in the city of Torrington. Other than that, I think we're holding our own and looking forward to summer and more meetings in person.
So in Kent, our budget was kicked back from the Board of Finance last Wednesday. And we had a week to meet and hash out. They were looking for 140 to 160,000 in cuts. And we ended up with 170,000 in cuts. So that was it was a true good faith effort on our part. They were very pleased last night when we met again. A couple of the big items in the budget are one, the fire department has originally came to us with about a $492,000 ask just for EMS staffing. I feel like we've spent a long time looking at this precipice, all of us. And I think we need to really, in this room, start talking about future models of EMS, the way that we're all doing EMS, save maybe Morris. And sharing, you know, creating that little mini region. We need to step into a new space and talk about new models and see if we can get the hospitals to join in and collaborate. We have a medic program that's 25 years, been doing a great job, but we also, that's a 7-town in the lower part, outside of the, for the most part, outside of the COG, that we share medic with, and we have a 1-year extension on that contract, but I know that, you know, that's gonna drastically change in one way or another. So, and
Right there with you, kid.
yeah, so I, like, sorry.
57% increase this year, just to keep that Trinity contract going. Yeah, that was a big hit.
And we have, you know, New Milford is the biggest piece of the contract, and they've been, you know, I think 7 years now, they've been an ALS service. They now have been assigned the PSA at the ALS level. So, you know, there's a lot of, there's gonna be a lot of change, and I think we need to start talking about it now. So I'm sort of lobbing the tennis ball over to you, Don, to figure out how we can start having these conversations. So that we actually decreased because the Board of Finance said to us multiple times, obviously, EMS is public safety. If they need more money, they can come back to the Board of Finance. But we cut $95,000 out of that, that ask, which was originally cut from 492 to 250 to 200, and then we almost halved it again. So we know that that's gonna just continue to tick up. Their projection for the current fiscal year is about $160,000 for EMS staffing. So they're paying ERM, a staffing company, for one EMT to fill a shift with a volunteer. So if anybody else is not yet having that conundrum, it's likely going to come down the pipe. So I imagine that our budget will get passed. We'll have a hearing in May, and then we vote a couple weeks later. Our big project right now is the streetscape project. I know that you all probably are going to find this impossible to believe. I'm glad you're all sitting, but we actually have a contract. We're going towards a contract. We've picked a contractor for the phase 1. So we are very hopeful that we'll get a shovel in the ground in the next couple of months. It's only been 14 years in the making. So it's nice to actually sort of see that we're gonna, you know, have this project come to fruition. A big project that we all need to, it's on the block again, is the Scotticook Indians. So the Scotticook Indian tribe, so there's 2 factions, Scotticook Indian tribe, Scotticook Tribal Nation. The Scotticook Indian tribe has submitted a petition for federal acknowledgement. We have until, I think it's July 7th, anybody has until July 7th to submit comments. And if you all want that link, do you think you would want that link to at least review their paperwork? So that we've been discussing, we have a team, we have that special counsel in Jeff Sinkowitz, who has been the same attorney throughout, I don't know, it's probably 20 years or something, or maybe even more. So he's going to provide a brief that will get submitted on our behalf, also working with the Kent School attorneys. So there's a whole team of folks. We haven't, there's been no land claim piece. There's, you know, we haven't gotten into that piece of it. They're just right now looking for federal acknowledgement. Our ARPA, we have an ARPA needs assessment committee that we hope is going to come to a May 11th meeting and give us their report and recommendations. They did a full survey. They actually did 2 or 3 focus groups with some folks and have really sort of dug down into the weeds on some recommendations that they're going to make. 2 questions I have for the group. This planning and zoning opt-out, I forget what is it, 21, Public Act 21-29, I think it is. For
Accessory
the,
dwellings.
yeah, accessory dwelling units.
Mhm.
Is everybody optioning, taking the opt-out?
Litchfield did.
We do.
Okay,
We're working on that. Now we're having a hearing on that next week.
okay.
That and the moratorium on cannabis.
Yeah, so RPNC did the moratorium and they're recommending taking the opt-out. I just wanted to sort of get the tenor of the.
We
That's
we
kind of
already
where we're
allow,
heading.
yeah, we already allow that type of housing, accessory dwellings,
Mhm,
by special permit.
mhm.
We already allow it.
Mhm.
We allow those.
Already saying.
Yeah, okay. And the other, I think we need to start really getting a handle on the IIJA funding. I know, gosh, I've seen like 6 webinars. And everyone I watch, they talk a lot about the COG sort of steering the ships. So, and I know that's gonna be a huge burden on you guys. But the fact that they're talking about, bundling bridge projects, I've heard a lot of discussion about, everybody's got bridge projects, we have bridge projects, we have culvert projects. So I think there's some really great opportunity for all of us to bundle a whole bunch of projects and pull a whole bunch of money out of our capital plans, which I would love. And so they keep talking about being, having all that engineering design work. And when you make application, you've got to have a lot of that already done. They want them shovel ready. So in order for us to do that, we would need time, but we definitely would like to see, I don't know if there's a, if the group thinks that a committee should be formed, or I don't know. But I think we need to pretty quickly get some serious focus on what all the towns need to do to start to identify projects that we might want, and in which, not to be funny, but which bucket. And also, there's a lot of broadband money in that. So I don't know if that is something that could help fast track a regional approach to getting fiber.
That's unclear how it's gonna flow down and how much it's gonna be and how
Yeah.
much will go to the cities versus the rural areas, etc. It's certainly not gonna make it free for towns to get broadband, but it might help.
Right.
So yeah, we have to look at that.
Yeah, there was a pretty interesting rural playbook that it's on the whitehouse.gov page. But that was pretty interesting to read, to see how they are targeting rural areas.
Yeah, do we qualify as rural under those definitions though?
It's got to be based on population
You
and
don't.
mileage.
Yeah.
Miles per road, miles of road and population.
Yeah.
You gotta fit into the formula.
And
So some of us will, some of us won't.
Done well.
Of course not.
So the IIJA is a developing situation. The
Yeah.
executive directors of all the COGs have been with discussion with this, and it looks like this morning there's a meeting that we're trying to schedule in the beginning of next week. So, and I know that there's been a real emphasis on the COGs being the tool to help shepherd this along. So, again, everything, like anything, is gonna be more cachet to more regional approaches and things like that, so.
The one other, I just want to toss out, does the group want to have an executive session, sort of update from our attorney that's handling SIT piece? Because it's a new application, I don't know if, because it's gonna, it has the potential to affect real estate, it has the potential to affect a lot of towns. I don't know if, that years and years ago, Bruce had, he had brought, I think, Jeff to one of the meetings. So if you want, it's, I just have to call him and ask him, and he can come and give us an update, but if you wanted just to float through me, that's fine too.
What people think.
I don't know.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, to see how it would affect all of us, maybe,
Mhm.
you know, to keep us abreast of what's happening.
Sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, I can give them a call and. see if we
Sounds
can-
like there's interest.
Just clarification. You said, New Milford has been assigned to PSA?
Yep.
Recently?
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. Interesting.
At the ALS.
On the ALs, okay.
That's your PSA? For Ken?
No, they applied for the PSA at the ALS level
ALS,
only
okay.
for.
For the region.
No, just for New Milford,
Oh, okay.
just for the town of New Milford.
Who had it before?
It wasn't assigned. It's not assigned in, other than Torrington, there's no ALS
Or ALS.
assignments.
Well, you have to get your PSA or your PSA, you have to prove to DPH that either you've unfunded them or they can't provide the service that the level of service that the town requires. It's the only way to get the PSAs back for, because we've been looking at it, we battle the same thing with emergency services, volunteerism's down, paid staff's up. Volunteers don't want to work alongside paid staff. Why are they going to respond if paid staff is getting paid to respond?
Hmm.
So, you know, it's an ongoing problem. So,
Yeah, the PSAs, I think there's one unique situation, but a PSA gets assigned to an organization. It doesn't get assigned to a government. So,
well, years ago, it was municipalities, and then what happened was DPH passed legislation, passed regulation that those PSAs had to be turned over to the organization that was servicing your community. And then all the towns had to make a decision. This was years and years and years ago. So all the towns made decisions at that point. Most of us went with our volunteer services that were already in the communities. You know, and the volunteer services think they're holding on to a gold bar and say, you know, listen, if you want your PSA back, we'll sell it to you for, you know, $2 million, you know, and we'll gladly close the doors and everything else. But, you know, the reality is that the PSAs are very difficult to get back. There was one that was ripped back. I think it was up in Granby area, that way, Windsor.
there's been multiple.
Because there was
I didn't, what if they, Cheshire or somebody down
for a
there?
failed attempt
Cheshire,
of
yeah.
response or something.
New Haven, there's been a number of them where they've taken the alternative provision route, that legislation that was passed in, I think it was 2012, where a town, if they show that the work isn't being,
Yeah.
provided properly, they can do an alternative provision. But
Michael,
definitely, I
you're
mean,
not watching the clock, I've been watching the clock. We still have 6 more towns to go, so why don't we continue around the table?
Top of my head, for Goshen. As everybody else is, we're working on budgets. We're pretty close to finishing up. Region 6 came in. Our student enrollment went down, so we're gonna be saving around $364,000 on our school budget. The ARPA funds are, the first payment that we got last year went towards lost revenue. This June's payment, when it comes in, is to be going towards the 199,350, is going towards a fire truck, and 128,000 is going towards a new ambulance. We're trying to do the ARPA recording right now, and I tell you, it is that ID me is a pain in the butt to get through. It's unbelievable. I don't know if you guys are doing it by yourself or you're.
I have not been able to accomplish that yet.
Yeah, I mean, they want everything, I think even your firstborn, it's unbelievable. I mean, I've been working on it for 2 days. It's like, it's really getting to me. So we're hopefully get the reporting done by April 30th. Like Denise says, hopefully this merger with the schools goes through, we hope. Because we'll see a reduction, and with Litchfield's debt and Region 6 debt, it's probably going to go up to like $3.5 million over 20 years. 4% is around $254,000 a year. So that'd be great for us. Plus we get some savings on educational costs. Oh, what else did I want to cover? I just got out of the regional animal control with Torrington. So I cut that animal control budget in half and save some monies there. We got 23 new homes being built in Goshen right now, so they're not even finished, so I'm hoping, and 6 of them are waterfronts. So I'm hoping to have some good tax base next year. Plus, we're going through a reval, so everything's looking good in Goshen. We don't have any debt, everything we own, so it's pretty good.
Yeah, good news over here too. Sorry, Roxbury, the budget's already going forward. It's flat because I have a negative 844,000 from Region 12. Last year we got hit. This year we lost students. We lost 13 students, so definitely affected us in a great way. So that's kind of moving forward. We're probably going to go from a 15.4 to a 15.2 or 15 flat. At this point, ARPA funding has already been approved. Town meetings, we're literally just executing the plan now, which is kind of nice. We already went through the cannabis discussion, had our public hearings, had our town meetings, and now it's prohibited for commercial sale, growing and use on town property. So that we just prohibited it. It was passed almost unanimously. Pretty supportive, and I'm definitely on the EMS talk with Gene. And I'll keep the rest simple. It's good.
So if I could, we'll come back to the town. There's still a number of towns, but I'm told Kathy Awad only has until 11:15. So why don't we switch gears briefly, hear from Kathy about the Workforce Investment Board, and we'll go back to Michael and the other towns that have not reported in yet. Good enough. So Kathy, why don't you go ahead?
Don, thank you so much for that. As I said to Rob in the chat, if we weren't about to undergo a week-long extensive federal monitoring review, I would be more than happy to hang out and listen to all your updates, but got a lot to check the box on between now and Monday morning. I did want to have the opportunity, and I'm going to try to share my screen with you folks. I know we've been trying for a while to get this presentation in front of you, but I certainly recognize you have a lot of work that you guys are responsible for. We just wanted to kind of give the newly elected officials, because if you remember, we tried this back in January, update the newly elected officials about the Workforce Board and the work that we do, how we try to interact with your group as a COG and each of you individually when you need our services. So I'll just take a minute of your time and go through this with you. Again, I'm Kathy Awad, I'm the president and CEO. Mike Hayden is our chief operating officer. He is currently working through a lot of our monitoring stuff too, so he didn't join me today. Just by way of a governance structure that we wanted to share for all of you, we do operate as a response to the governor appointing 5 workforce areas in the state. Our region is the Northwest region. We are responsible for 41 towns and municipalities in the Northwest corner. We operate under a lead elected official consortium agreement that many of you might recall. We visited your towns in 2019 to re-execute. So that document right now is in effect and will remain in effect unless and until it needed to be updated. It continues to renew annually. So I would encourage the new members to take a look at that. And again, any questions, happy to talk to you. The Workforce Investment Board is created by within the intergovernmental agreement. You have a consortium of lead elected officials that serve as your executive committee. Mayor Carbone is on that committee, along with Mayor Bass from New Milford, Mayor O'Leary from Waterbury, now Mayor Esposito from Danbury, and Mayor Hess from Naugatuck. We tried to have a mix of rural towns, small communities, and the large municipalities. Those mayors then sat the Workforce Board of Directors. By regulation, it is required that the Workforce Board of Directors be a majority private sector business owner or business representative driven, with some required partners that also include a certain number of labor unions and required partners such as older workers, veteran services, youth providers, and folks that serve the disabled community. We have our officers of the board. Our Joe Pisani is our chair. Joe Vrabely is our vice chair. George LeCapper from Thomaston is the treasurer. And Beth DuPont from O&G serves as our secretary. We have about 24 members on the board. And again, the majority are private sector business people. As you see from the organizational structure, there's not a lot of us on staff. We have approximately 16, 17 staffers. Some are part-time. We do our best to deliver services to participants throughout the region. We have a contracted deliverer of our career services. We have three one-stop, let me go back. We have three one-stop centers, American Job Centers. The Comprehensive Center is located in Waterbury with satellite offices in Torrington and in Danbury. Some of the things I just wanted to highlight for you folks as we move through this is that the lack, and you guys all have suffered from it, the lack of people looking for work. They talk about the great resignation where, about 3 million people resigned their jobs last September when we thought people would be coming back into the workforce. This number that I have before you folks here, this is the services that were provided during 2021. And as you can see, there's not a lot of people coming into the one-stop centers. Back in 2019, pre-pandemic, we'd serve 4,000 or 5,000 people in the course of a year, individual unduplicated services. We see, if you look down here, the potential number of job seekers, there's about 15,000 folks that have now in 2021, 15,000 people that have looked for a job, but they have not accessed us for services. We pick that up through internet traffic. So like, as you guys struggle to find municipal employees, and you might hear from some of your local employer base that they're struggling, this is not unique to any of us in the room. It is not unique to any town in Connecticut. Unfortunately, it's not unique to any state in the United States. And honestly, I've done some work with some workforce boards that are in the outside of the country, in the US Virgin Islands. They too struggle to find a workforce to come back into the workforce since the pandemic has sent down. Some of the services, again, that we provide are both to the employers and to job seekers. For your employers, we encourage you to refer any employer that's looking for a workforce directly to the workforce board. We can assist them in our partnership with the Department of Labor in doing recruiting events. We can help them with some staff that they might want to onboard that may not have the skill sets they need by providing that employer with an on-the-job training contract that would offset a new employee's wage for a period of time while that employee begins to learn the processes and procedures of that employer. And we have a very robust business services team that met again this morning. We have approximately 20 different entities that serve on our business services team, including the Northwest Chamber up in your area, as well as Northwestern Connecticut Community College. And again, for your folks in your community that might be looking for work, we have numerous job fairs. I know there's another one that's going to be held. Joanne's putting together another one for next month. And then we also have training funds available for people that are looking to either upgrade their skills or maybe enter a new career pathway. We can give folks a scholarship between $4,000 and $8,000 to attend training programs that we work with the educational providers with to make sure that they are in line with what the employer is looking for. You might have heard the governor and Kelly Valley-Reese, who is the new Office of Workforce Strategy. She's the state's chief workforce officer. They are releasing a program called Career Connect, very similar to what we fund with our workforce investment dollars. Career Connect will release approximately $62 million through an RFP that we submitted back in February that'll provide a multitude of opportunities for all of Connecticut residents to participate in. Our workforce board was asked by the state to submit an application in the area of green jobs. We did that. We've requested $18 million over the next 4 years to talk about energy efficiency programs and upskill people to do that. As you know, the governor released additional funding to upgrade HVAC in all of the schools. We'll be addressing training needs in the area of HVAC. And again, environmental remediation. And as you may know, part of the supply chain issue is the lack of CDL drivers. So we're looking at addressing that shortage with a dedicated CDL licensing program. I know we've been working with a number of folks to develop additional supports for transportation to get people not only to training programs, but more importantly to work, especially in the rural areas. The state has asked us to put together an application, and we've been working with all of the state transportation agencies, including the Northwest Transit District, to talk about how we increase the number of bus routes or van pools with additional funding that we might be receiving. Greg did explain to us that he too is faced with a CDL bus driver issue. So this is, kind of comes in a full circle. And lastly, our manufacturing programs that we've done, we've worked with your, I'm sorry, let me bring that back up. I think I'm sharing the wrong thing here. We've worked with your adult ed providers at Advanced. Sue DeMonico has been a great partner in this to create an application that would service adult ed providers, adult ed students in the region to get them into manufacturing careers, as many of your regional manufacturers still struggle to find the workforce that they need. We have launched recently what we call our Next Gen Sector Partnership Meeting. Very exciting opportunity. We have one in manufacturing that we launched about a year ago. 2 weeks ago, we held an event at the Clocktown Brewery that saw over 80 manufacturers from across the region participate in conversations about what their needs are and how the Workforce Board and Education Partners can assist them. And we launched another one 2 weeks ago in healthcare, the first one in the state, where we had great participation from many of the folks in the Northwest corner, including Maria Skinner, the folks at Gear, Sharon Hospital, as well as Charlotte Hungerford Hospital. So we're very excited about these opportunities. And I promise that we'll get back to you maybe in another quarter or so and update you on the progress of those. Lastly, I know I heard you guys all talking about your ARPA funds. We were approached by Waterbury and by New Milford to help them put together some employment training programs with their ARPA money. In New Milford, Mayor Bass is looking at increasing the opportunity for trade training, and we're working with him. And in Waterbury, we launched a program to increase the number of community health workers. And we've added some additional funding for Waterbury students to the youth employment program. And lastly, Mayor O'Leary is looking to assist in a reentry program down there, as Waterbury has a very high number of beds for halfway houses. And so we're looking at creating some additional training opportunities for the reentry population that tends to find itself landing in Waterbury. I just wanted to make that you guys aware of that, because if you're looking to do something with your ARPA money and you'd like some assistance from the Workforce Board about convening or creating opportunities for training of your residents, we're happy to work with you independently and individually on that. And lastly, this is where you can find us. We try to have a very visible social media presence. We're on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We try to be relevant. You might note that yesterday we had 25 reentry participants attend a workshop where we did resume writing, interview skills, and they all got gift cards for a suit at Burlington Coat Factory and a haircut before a job fair that will be held next week in Waterbury. So again, I don't want to take too much of your time. I know you've got a lot going on, but we are available. Happy to take any phone calls from any of you individually and come up and meet with you folks one-on-one. I can take any questions you have right now if you'd like.
Question?
Catherine, Town of Harwinton, Mike, Chris, how are you?
Good, Mayor. How are you, sir?
But I just wanted to see if you would reach out to me after this meeting. I wanted to ask you about some things about the trade training and trade programs.
Sure, of course, sir. I'll shoot you an email. We'll set up a time to talk.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, anytime you guys need us, you can reach out to us. I'll do a group email again. I think our email is pretty easy. But again, next week, we will be undergoing this compliance monitoring. I do want to thank Mayor Carbone, who agreed to participate in our opening session on Monday. Again, that's a week-long event that they'll go through all of our policies and procedures. Hopefully, they won't find too much amiss, and they'll learn about all the great things that we do through our community. So again, thank you for your time. And again, if you need anything, I'll look forward to talking with you all soon.
Thank you, Kathy. Brian, you still?
Thank you.
Are you still okay for time?
I did just extend to 12:15. First, I need to meet in 12.
So you're okay, you wait a little bit longer? Okay.
Thank you.
Back to Michael then.
Short and sweet. Harwinton's cutting its mill rate again, proposing to cut its mill rate again. We made it through public hearing. We go, tonight's the last Board of Finance meeting, then we vote on it the third Tuesday in May. And so this will be our second year cutting, 3 years of holding. And but we had enrollment worked in our favor this year with Region 10. So that helped out. Burlington picked up the bigger share this year. We picked it up last year. So we didn't have to cut as much out, thank God. You know, the grand list growing so much over the motor vehicles, that's helped almost every town. It's really the attributing factor to being able to adjust our mill rates or at least hold them. Going across, if you haven't hit that proposed cap or the new proposed cap. We are looking for a rec director and assistant Parks and Rec director. If anyone knows of anyone, please send them our way. We're looking for someone for those positions. And let's see, what else? Everything else is just, you know, status quo. It's everything that you guys said is going on in every other town. We're working on projects and bonding. We did have Commissioner Boughton out the other day, spent a couple hours in Harwinton going around. We looked at some projects. We talked a lot about the infrastructure bills and the grants and the COG's involvement in that and what we can do to try to take advantage of some of the rural programs that Harwinton would qualify for. Which is, you know, a lot of your beam rail replacements, your signs, your cross culverts that are failing, a lot of those things that we might be able to qualify for. So we're getting a lot of information on that, and Steve Nacera is there, which he's great. So Steve reached out, we've been working with him to try to get all the information together, and be more than happy to pass along to any of you guys. If you're interested, let me know. Other than that, just legislation.
That big notebook there.
Exactly.
Okay, looking at the screen here, Gordon, you there?
Yes, good morning. Yeah, so things are good here. We're working through our budget season. One thing we have done with our ARPA money, we allocated most of it to businesses and to our nonprofits. The Board of Finance did decide to put some money towards our frontline workers and first responders as a direct payment to thank them for their service during the pandemic. So that will be part of next year's budget for us. We are also moving ahead with our wastewater plant proposal for West Cornwall, a micro system that hopefully will help the revitalization of that. We're already seeing some new businesses open up in West Cornwall and Cornwall Bridge. And again, things are good. We have some new residents that are helping out with some of our volunteer needs in town. And so anyway, we're all looking forward to spring though, and hope to get our Memorial Day celebrations going too. So thank you.
Thanks, Gordon. Brent? Brent, are you there? Who else we got here?
Jim.
Jim. There he is. Jim, you're up in the right-hand corner of the screen.
Thanks, Don. Yes, sharing a lot of the same miseries as everyone else. It was a particularly tough budget season this year. We did manage to keep the mill rate flat. We took a $600,000 hit from the education budget due to an enrollment increase. So that was a real difficult thing to swing. So we went back to all our departments and asked for cuts. It wasn't an easy season by any stretch, but the mill rate is remaining the same again. Board of Finance unanimously passed the budget. We'll go to hearing on May 3rd. Last October, I met with emergency services, and there was a consensus that our EMS and fire services had outgrown sharing a single building. We then went to what I would call a silent phase of a fundraising campaign. We had some very targeted donors. And over the course between October and February, we were able to raise $1.4 million to purchase a 6,600 square foot building across the street from the firehouse. So we completed that purchase at the beginning of April. And now we'll put monies towards the renovations. We have an RFP out for that. But, you know, to Gene and some others' points, I would envision that in years to come as being somewhat of a regional facility to help out with the EMS woes that we all share. You know, our bridge program is on track. It's been difficult. We've had some bumps in the road with material availability. We just completed one bridge last week, started a second one this week, and we'll do a third in July. That'll wrap us up for this year. But other than that, all's good here in Washington.
Brent, you back? Brent?
He doesn't seem to have audio on here.
No audio. All right, well, what are we, did I miss anybody else on the screen?
I don't think so.
Doesn't look like it. All right, Brian, you wanna?
Yeah.
Join us up here?
That'd be great. Thank you. So I went to this gymnast and I asked her to teach me how to do a split. And she said, well, how flexible are you? I said, I can't do Tuesdays. I said,
Oh, yes.
So many times, we do talk past each other, right, with our communication. I know this is my third time before you talking about this topic. And Don did ask me to be very concrete with you today. And I intend to do that. There's a competition for your time and attention, so I appreciate this very much. I guess the first thing I want to say is that there are some problems for which solutions need to be collective, and the problems transcend town boundaries. I'm here to present one of those challenges that we have. I think you're all finding when you had to make choices with your ARPA funds, and as we evolve in this pandemic, that the recovery is as challenging as the pandemic itself. Highest and best use. There are a lot of challenges that came along with the dollars that said intended use, and you got to prove yourself in the end that you were addressing needs that emerged or were exacerbated during the pandemic. There are many of them, but one that I have now raised with you sitting here today the third time that I really want to draw your attention to, and that is a growing need and demand, wait lists and acuity with children and adolescents in behavioral health. Outside of healthcare, I think some of you know my background in public service. I've always been interested in health and human services, but I know your challenges go beyond those. But there's something unique happening here that at the very least, for awareness, you need to know what's going on. The isolation that occurred during the pandemic has really taken something that was a crisis before and has really exacerbated it. Again, the demand and wait list is one thing, but acuity is the other. Challenges that we're seeing today that people are turning to us for, and the inability to meet those immediate needs, whether the school's making the referral, families making the referral, and in some cases, adolescents just reaching out for help. There is something unique going on in all of our towns. And it's a troubling sign. There's a sense of urgency that comes with this report. So as opposed to just putting out a few statistics, over 40 individuals and organizations got together and they said, we need to be thoughtful about this. If we're ever given an opportunity, whether it's $1, one policy change, or one additional person, what would we do? And all these organizations got together over several weeks and they came up with 12 recommendations. The good news is that most of these are now embedded in state and federal legislation, and that's where this needs to happen mostly. But there is a local response and some things that don't get captured in contracts or added funding streams that come from federal or state. They will not cover these items. And of those 12 recommendations, 2 I'm coming squarely before this group to ask for support. So let me tell you about those 2. But first, I should say these 40 organizations worked extremely hard. They were individuals, not just, excuse me, it's not just organizations, not people doing this work. It's also people relying on this work. We had consumer representation, families that spoke up. on a survey that we did about what's the strengths, the weaknesses, and the opportunities, threats that we face here in this community, and everyone added to that survey as well, which reached even more individuals and organizations. But the two items that are before you, one is not going to be a surprise to you. While I can speak to you about the acuity, we also know that there's many individuals that don't need therapy, they don't need medication, but they are suffering in some way from the isolation. And so the first proposal that's before you is we need fast, on the ground, an explosion of recreational and social activities. When school ends, you're going to see a pent-up demand and people acting out in ways that can easily be solved by engagement. And so we have a proposal that's before you for 3 years at $50,000 a year of collected funds to grow pro-social recreational activities in Northwest Connecticut. This has to benefit rural communities, not just the Torrington and Winston domains. We are proposing for accountability that this go through the Community Foundation and in particular the Building Healthier Communities Fund, which can get 100% of these dollars, no administrative costs, overhead or any of this, right out on a competitive basis. We can build in any type of requirements that you want to make sure that it reaches a certain number of individuals, rural communities, and that we can make sure that there's accountability that they deliver what they say they're going to deliver. That's a 3-year, $50,000 a year commitment. I know that there will be other entities interested in adding to that effort, including the organization that I represent here today. The second, and this isn't going to come surprise to any of you that have new endeavors. People matter, right? You got to get someone, a talent that's going to actually do the work. And for quite some time, organizations have worked hard to have liaisons in schools, to have schools know who the providers are in this area, for families to call 211 to find out how to access services. But in sectors, particularly child serving sectors, that have hired coordinators, it has made a huge difference. You get the most out of your collaboration. That whole part about someone trying to navigate multiple levels of service, a family just for the first time coming into the seeking service, this coordinator can help navigate, take the mystery out of these things, get people in the right place, the right time for the right service. These two things, we do not believe that any of the big things that are being tackled on the federal or state level, that we will be in a position to fund, yet we know they will make a big difference. Again, on the 12 recommendations, these two really do stand out as we know can make a big difference here. Again, without picking an organization, we feel that who would house this coordinator, that we would do that on a competitive basis. And we are offering to you for accountability reasons for the monies to go to the Community Foundation and awarded through the Building Healthier Communities. So there's not one penny that's committed to any administrative, it goes right out to support this position. This would be $75,000 a year, which includes benefits, right? And modeled after other Northwest Region coordinator in other sectors, and to serve both families and the providers, and that's $75,000 a year for 3 years. The last thing that I want to say is that I know all of you have spent hours on deciding where best to place your ARPA funds. You've engaged your communities in making those decisions. And in some cases, I know you've already locked it down. And I don't know if you have buckets of things or if there is some flexibility, or for those who haven't committed or obligated all of their funds. We think this lends itself perfectly to these requests. And knowing that a portion of the monies that have been given to you were directed to be regional solutions, not to town solutions. I'm trying to serve up for you an opportunity for an issue that really we will only learn more about as this evolves. And it's, I hate to be alarmist, but it is not a pretty picture. So I'll conclude there and take any questions that you have.
Questions? So we've done a pro rata thing with trying in terms of what each of the towns might be liable for, or NHCOG budget, or.
I propose something, but you know what? This has to be an individual. We've all been at your work. I don't know. I don't want to assume what your position is at. If the COG wanted to take a position, I did produce a formula based on a per capita that I did offer. But I want to respect your own governance.
I mean, I have a couple questions, Brian. Is the schools heavily involved in this? And is it realistic to think that one person can actually be in charge of 21 towns, our towns and all, but the huge crisis that it is?
Yeah.
How does that unfold?
Most families find their way, find a school contact and can get their way. It's the individuals that really have maybe some other stressors in their family that really require the navigation. A single individual can help an enormous amount. It's not an ongoing case management. It's literally just a information and referral function. So you can handle a pretty good volume. I want to emphasize too that Region 6 was squarely involved, was the initiator, was Chris Leone.
Yeah, we've talked about it. I just didn't
John
know.
and myself together. But yeah, I think there's, you know what, maybe based on experience, we'll learn we're in over our head or it's overwhelming. But I think based on the early childhood coordinator that's there, we think this bandwidth will work. We certainly know that the collaboration part of what they need to do and bringing the providers together, that they can absolutely do within this proposal.
So this person is going to be the person that tells everybody where to go to get the help.
Sits above all these organizations that do different things and in some cases are competitors, but this would let all that fall to the wayside.
Does Leonardo, I mean, is he somebody that's also working with this?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It's almost in the same kind of wheelhouse, health services coordinator.
Yeah, he can't serve as the coordinator. He's looking at big picture stuff. We've met with him and shared this with him. This is actually contact with individuals to make them connect with services.
Almost like a caseworker type
It
thing.
is, it's a case management function, but not ongoing caseloads, it's information referral. He is familiar with this and is now part of the discussion going forward.
Where would the person be housed?
So what we're proposing here is a competitive process. We know there's a couple of agencies that are interested that would serve as the fiduciary and hire, but that the individual would be a resource to all the providers. Greenwood's certainly an example that could serve that capacity.
And if the towns were to commit ARPA funds, would we be provided a preliminary report if we were considering to do it? Will we be provided a tangible, something that we can say, yeah, for our, you know, if it's $50,000 a year, $75,000 a year, whatever the commitment level is for the next 3 years, what's the tangible things that we're going to receive for the money so that we can present that?
Yes, that's exactly why I proposed the Community Health Foundation, or excuse me, the Northwest Community Foundation and the Building Healthier Communities. We do have a process on the board of ongoing reports, and that there have to be metrics that are selected associated with the award. That's exactly why that's in there, because I know you'll have that need. We also want to make sure that every penny is accounted for. Yeah, there would be that.
Yeah, because when you talk about the actual, what most everyone says is, okay, well, what's the benefit? What are we gonna get for the 150 or the, 350,000, whatever it is? If we decide to go all in, and I think that having some sort of report and knowing that the town is, that you're not just throwing your money into a pool and hope to get maybe one, service out of it at some point in the next 3 years,
In summary fashion, I put what the key objective is of that particular position, but clearly in an award, we would be far more specific about it. Yeah.
On the other hand,
What is your hopeful scheduled timeline, targeted timeline.
On the pro-social recreational stuff, we would want to make those awards and be in place for services come June. We made this proposal, by the way, at a time where Camp Mo was not going to open. And we know the importance now. Fortunately, it is going to open in a limited capacity. I think most of your towns are represented with the kids that go to Camp Mo. But we really on that front need to go fast. So the building out their community, I would say we need, we could probably do something in 45 days and get the, with proposals back, vetted and then implementing more. On the coordinator, that's a hiring process. The selection of which agency we could probably do in the same time period, but the actual hiring may take a little bit longer. But I'm feeling a sense of urgency around both of these.
Any other hand? Have you talked to the Community Foundation about any funding?
Yeah, so Bill, I think there, I guess I said earlier, other people involved. So, I'm coming to you with the full proposal. I'd like to start here. I think it would be great momentum to have municipal support. But if you came up short of that, I do believe there are other opportunities, not at this level, I gotta be honest with you. I don't think there's a single source for $150,000 or a single source at 75, but building healthier communities is certainly an option. The hospital would like to commit on the pro-social front. And I'm sure that there will be others, but we haven't started a campaign. We're starting here.
It sounds like a conversation with Rob, proposal to the town, because all the towns would have to go back to the board of selectmen, board of finance, we're gonna allocate money for something like this. I think what we need is a maybe more formal proposal for the individual towns, what it would cost them and what. Because, it's not a lot of money for a small town like Park Hampton, but it's
I was a little hesitant about putting it out there, but last time I did send you an email, both of you, with a proposal. John had input in that as well. I guess I wouldn't veer from that. If that's what you were looking for, you have that before you. Yeah, and it was a per capita.
If we had decided to set aside money from ARPA for Greenwood, should we just shift that money to this organization instead?
No.
I mean, it's kind of, we have a referral process there, right?
But let me just, so the demand, right? So the amount that each town gives to Greenwood is very much appreciated, but it does not come close to meeting the demand. We have, when we were fully staffed, which we are not right now, we were doing 80 assessments, 80 mental health assessments every single month. Okay, that's a lot of mental health assessments. Right now, we're booking out for the end of May. Right, people are in real need for these services. And so, Brian's not a doom and gloom kind of guy. I am, because I'm doing the work every day. We are in a crisis. These kids, we've seen a rapid increase in self-injurious behavior, right? Kids who are demonstrating all types of unhealthy habits. And one connection I really would like you all to make is that what they teach us in social work school is that you're going to pay for this whether you like it or not. Because since your last COG meeting, there have been 22 non-fatal overdoses in Litchfield County and 7 fatal overdoses. So 7 people have died since your last meeting. Talking about EMS, those are how many EMS folks? I mean, you talk to your folks, more mental health calls, more overdose calls, more fatals, taking a toll on everybody, both financially and psychologically. So these kids who are struggling right now, these adolescents and these kids, we're going to be paying for it. The anxiety, the depression, self-injury is there. Right? So this is a relatively small amount of money when we think about it, but I think to Brian's point, it could have a tremendous impact in bringing all of these services that we have here together and coordinating that care.
It sounds like you're a researcher of that email. Let's put on let's have everybody go back to their respective boards, and then the next meeting, let's put it on for adoption or a vote or discussion or all of the above.
I can work with you on
that.
that, of course. And then, I'll redistribute it after the meeting.
So let's ask everybody to, come back with a yay or nay at the next meeting, and see how it comes out.
I appreciate the respect.
I'll talk to you offline because I got to get a few more details for you.
Yeah, no problem.
Any other questions for Brian?
Thanks.
Thank you.
John Keel, you're up next.
Good morning, Don. Good morning, everyone. I apologize for not being there in person, but had to be in Danbury for another event, and that's at the opposite end of the spectrum. So there was no way I could make both. So real quick, COVID wise, we're still working on long-term recovery. I know you heard from Kathy Awad earlier, and she's part of our long-term recovery. And this is one of the things we've been working on also is trying to find, working with FEMA, trying to identify some resources that could assist and address some of the issues that have arisen during the COVID, operation here, I'll call it. So, jobs is one of them. Childcare is another one. So there's other issues besides the jobs one that we're working on through long-term recovery and working with FEMA and Region 1 and stuff like that. So under normal operations, the Region 5 Cybersecurity Working Group is at the point where they're probably going to be reaching out to each one of the municipalities to try to provide them with an opportunity to do some sort of assessment, as you probably heard at the CEO EMD train that was held in March up at the Litchfield Inn. So they're going to be working to reach out to everyone. They do have a small amount of money to work with through the region, so they won't be able to get to everyone, and that's why I think they told you originally it was a first come first serve. So they'll continue to work on that. I think I mentioned last time we do have a new state EMD that took Mr. Hackett's job, William Turner out of Pennsylvania. We're actually doing meet and greets, so hopefully you can make one of the meetings on the 10th of May. We're doing 2 sessions. We're actually having a session in Watertown in the afternoon. I believe it's 2:00, and in the evening we will be having a session up at the Litchfield County Regional Fire School for those who can't make it during the day. So it's an opportunity to introduce the new EMD and let you talk. He can talk about some of his goals and objectives as we move forward here. Still working on some things with the MCV. The mobile communication vehicle. I apologize for that. And then on the same topic, communication projects. The region has been working on a few communication projects. So they've been buying a lot of radios. They've been doing a whole bunch of stuff. Each one of the emergency support functions and the steering committee have been doing all sorts of projects in regards to communication. I had a meeting last week with multiple ESF chairs to talk about how we can collaborate and bring together, what's everybody's game plan moving forward in the future for communications. We're spending an awful lot of money from the region, and everyone has their own little plan, but we need to make sure that everybody's on the same page. So it was an opportunity to bring all the ESFs together last week to talk about some of those projects. So we're going to meet again. We have set another date. Some dates to remember: the CCM DPH DEMIS Symposium, Emergency Management Symposium, will be held next week on the 27th up at Area in Prospect. So this is the symposium that emergency management symposium we were having every year until COVID occurred, and we haven't had it over the last couple of years. So this will be the first year for that. The venue has moved. Again, it's in Prospect. I have developed a school safety and security working group to begin networking in regards to SROs and keeping our schools safe, and the people that work on all that safety stuff for our schools. We'll be meeting next Thursday, the 28th. It'll be the first time we've gotten together. So Region 5 will start to work on and start to allow the opportunity for these folks in this group to network with each other and talk about best practices and stuff like that. Also next week, all 5 of the there's only 4 of us now. All 4 of the coordinators will be working with, or actually meeting with MEMA, which is the Massachusetts Emergency Management, folks. So we basically, as we do with New York on a quarterly basis, this will start the process for us actually meeting with some of the folks from Massachusetts Emergency Management. And as you are all familiar, this region borders 2 states. So having an opportunity to communicate and work with those folks has obviously been very effective and helped out a lot. Next, well, on May 4th, we will have we're calling the ESF 9 crosswalk. So because of the incident that occurred in Woodbury with Sergeant Moll's death back in, I think it was February, due to flooding waters and stuff like that, out of that came, we had been working with some new, I'm not going to say new resources, but resources we hadn't been accustomed to working with very often, aviation. So there's a lot of aviation assets around. So what they decided to do from the ESF 9 perspective was to get all the groups together to bring their assets to be shown on one place and talk about their capabilities and all that kind of stuff. So on May 4th, we're going to have, you should have gotten a flyer. I did share that. You're more than welcome to attend in the morning. They're actually, we'll talk about their capabilities. The afternoon, they actually will have the assets on scene. So there's aviation aircraft, helicopters, fixed wing. They're actually going to have drones there. Their USAR is going to be there with some equipment. So it's just an opportunity for you to see some of the different resources that are out there and available to assist. And again, this was all as a result of the Woodbury thing, just to bring people together, be more familiar with what's available to them. And then just to save the date, last thing here, save the date. We will be having an EPI this year. That's the governor's emergency preparedness planning initiative. This was the annual exercise that we did prior to COVID. It stopped a couple of years ago because of COVID. So we're actually going to do it. We're working with the National Weather Service this year. They're actually doing a nationwide type event. So we're just going to hop on board of that and make it specific to Connecticut. It's a hurricane related scenario. So this might be very beneficial, and that's going to be May 24th. So if you want to just mark your calendars, we'll be asking the folks from each municipality to participate with their unified command group on that day, so that we can do a test as we've been doing in the past. But I think that's all I have, Don, for now, unless there's any questions, pending questions.
Questions for John? Thank you, John. It's always nice to see you, but I'm glad you're here, at least with your voice.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, committees, I mentioned we're going to do this, try to set up a meeting to talk about internet, and that'll come and with a better agenda and participation from consultants. Michael, legislator?
I'll try to be fast. There were, so overall, been watching close to 77 bills. Outlined most of them all on a spreadsheet and in my books, my favorite book. So just, I pulled out some highlights on some of them that you may not be aware of. Senate Bill 326, which was an act lowering the mill rate cap for the motor vehicle property tax. As I said, that particular bill was dead. However, will be most likely reintroduced under Senate Bill 9. And most likely a 32.46 cap is going to be presented in that. But that particular bill, as it was proposed, is that the Housing Committee had quite a few bills. 5204, an act concerning needs assessment for fair share plans for municipalities. Probably saw some of the articles that have been coming out that where what they classify as richer communities will be paying if you can't reach your 10%. They want to have you pay a fee to the state in order to count neighboring towns as part of your affordable housing plan to reach your 10%, rather than just making the percentage more realistic. That bill is still alive, so that's House Bill 5204. I believe that is definitely still alive, and there's some modification of that. So I think it will come through. We're not sure what that's gonna come through on, but it directly contradicts 830G, which we are required to follow. So I think we just got to pay attention. A lot of this stuff won't happen till probably next week. Some of them have been referred to appropriations. Some of them will come out over the next week or so and be probably voted on and signed off on. There was also police accountability bill. Some people asked about that. The CALEA certification. It looks like that's at the Senate. And talked with Mike Mazinski this morning. Senator Duff obviously is the one that was a big push on that CLIA certification. Looks like that he won't hold up the bill if it comes through with the post certification in there as well to make it more affordable for communities. House Bill 5043, an act reforming motor vehicle assessments, is alive and well and still waiting for action on that one. That bill, if you remember right, talks about going through and how we assess the motor vehicles and what values we use using the housing market trends, MSRs, MSRPs, compared to how it was in the past with our assessors. Senate Bill 190, an act concerning municipal assessments and finance personnel. This was about offering online classes for assessors because it's hard to get assessors, and for assessors that want to be assessors don't have the ability to travel to where some of these classes are being held and the times when they're holding down a full-time job somewhere else. So this one is awaiting action as well. It did get through and is awaiting some action on that to possibly offer some online classes. As you all know, the Connecticut Association of Assessors is all over this. So they really want to make it so that more assessors will become certified and have the ability to get certified by doing online services. House Bill 5171 is one that kind of comes back one that comes back, at least the last couple sessions it came back, but it died again. It did not come out, was House Bill 5171, which was an act concerning abandoned blighted properties for receivership. If you remember right, that bill is designed to be more or less 35,000 or more. The towns can go, the blighted properties can be put into a receivership. What the goal was behind that was to lower that threshold for towns, rural communities like ours that do have blighted properties that we can't access the receivership applications and laws. And that unfortunately did not make it through. I think that was more of a wording issue than anything else, and I think they just couldn't agree on it. Senate Bill 296, an act eliminating requirement to store personal property of evicted tenants, one that comes up every year. That's dead. We're going to be storing their property for a long time. I don't think that's going anywhere. And then the remote meetings one, some people had asked about that. So the remote meetings is still, it appears to be, it's more of a timeline. It's there and it's alive. And the Senate's been informed that it is, a time constraint that we need to know what they're going to be doing with that. It does not appear it will be mandated. It will still be, it looks like it probably will go through as an option that you could have hybrid and still under the 45-day storage of that particular meeting digitally for FOIA
That
purposes.
went through the House, right?
Yeah, it went through. It's over the Senate now.
It's on the calendar for a vote.
Senate.
Tuesday, I think it's Tuesday. I remember what that one was. Let's see. Outdoor food and beverage, someone had asked me to look into that one. That did pass. That was, in case anyone's interested in reading that one, that's raised bill 5271. That's waiting for the governor.
That extends it for what, a year?
Yeah, it extends it for, it's a 3-year period. I think they finally changed it to the modified to 3-year for food establishments. That was so that they could have outdoor dining and display of goods sold. So
State realizes they get to collect 7.35
yeah, exactly.
extra, right?
Extra on that.
At the
Yeah.
outdoor space, so, yeah.
And then the consumer packaging bill, I know a lot of people were following that, the raised bill 115. That bill died. That was on I think that got a lot of pushback from the haulers on what they were gonna do with their facilities to sort some of that packaging and stuff that they were going after. But overall, some of the other bills like House Bill 5283 and Senate Bill 204. Senate Bill 204, if you remember right, that was Looney's bill that talked about the special education, raising it to 85% when they don't even meet the 75% that they're supposed to now. So I kind of chuckled when I saw that, but in conversations over the last few weeks on where this actually ended up, because it was one of those ones that was there and then it was gone and then it was there and then it was modified, then it was back, then it was out. And talking with, in fact, Mike from CCM and I had a good chuckle about it because it started off as 85%, then it went to a tier pilot, and now it looks like that it's going to be a study. And now from a study, now they're thinking about going back to actually putting it in place to a tier program. So we don't really know what appropriations is going to do with it, but it's over there now. So we'll see what happens there. And then House Bill 5283, which was the ECS bill that some people were following. It looks like that with ECS, they're trying to keep it on the same timeline, but they're going to try to hold it flat till 2027. For some of us, that's the whole harmless piece that they're talking about. It looks like that actually will make it through and be fine. I don't think it's going to get much more resistance than what it already had on it. There was a lot of push on that to accelerate that funding, which would decrease many of us for ECS money. But I think it would be smart for all of us to think about your ECS money, plug it into the formula, get your projections and start reducing yourself before you get to 227 or 2027, because then you're not fixing a big hole in 2027 by saying, oh gosh, the ECS kicked in and now we're dead in the water. Obviously, I mean, all the bills, this is just a sample of, you know, the 78 bills it was total that I was following. The biggest thing is gonna be implementers and the budget when those come out, you know, because a lot of these bills, although they say they're dead, every time we get the implementer bill, I spend hours pining through it and phone calls to Mike and phone calls to Betsy and talking about different areas of the implementer bill and when the budget comes out, because some of these bills, although they appear dead, get pushed back in the wording. So we have to be very careful to watch all of those and try to see if we can push back and reach out to our legislators on that. If I see any big problems, I'll reach out to Rob and he can send an email out to everybody just to kind of reach out to your legislators and tell them, you know, where you guys stand with certain bills that are, we think that may not truly be dead, that are gonna come back, but that's pretty much all I have in case anybody has any questions.
Any questions from Mike?
Just, did anything ever come of Mira? Wasn't that a discussion?
Yeah, Mira was one of the discussions. Obviously, they're not gonna get any funding from the state, but Don can speak to that better, but I know a lot of towns have exercised the opt-out. I know Harwinton did, we opted, but where Mira stands is.
The bottom line of that, and I'll give you the 30-second version, is there's still 14 towns in Mira, town from 40 something. It's about that's 75,000 tons of waste. Much of that's in Eastern Connecticut. It's going to go to the Wanda burn plant. The remainder of it's probably going to get trucked out of Torrington. Watertown is shutting down as a transfer station. Mira, the question is, what is Mira going to look like, or if it's even going to exist? Because right now, the commissioner finally recognizes that by shutting down the burn plant, we're going to change our statewide plan for how we deal with solid waste. So it's all going to go out of state right now, except for the burn plants that are in existence in Bristol, Bridgeport, and Eastern Connecticut. And those are all privately run and have their own authority. So there is money. I think one of the two bills will happen, which will ask for a study committee to look at what to do with solid waste in the state. What's the next step? But there's no money from Mira. Mira, like Mike said, most of the towns opted out. Pretty much all of the big towns opted out, Hartford, Manchester, Glastonbury, et cetera. So Mira will continue to fulfill its contracts. Unfortunately, it's all going to go west, and Torrington will be probably the location for pretty much everybody for transfer station for the remaining towns. So it's not a pretty picture, but I can't tell you how many discussions we have with DEP and so we can get their attention. We finally got their attention, but now it's too late.
It's a good thing they had a plan in place.
Don't get me started.
And hats off, if any of the newly elected officials, if you have not met Mike from CCM or talked with Betsy
Mike,
from
open up your
COG,
screen.
you might want to, you know, reach out to them. They are great partners, so we may be following stuff, but they actually are great partners in helping and guiding and actually disseminating some of the bills that you may have questions on and stuff too.
And Betsy Guerra is very, very active with cost, you know, for the small towns. You know, if you're not a member of cost, I think pretty much everybody in the room is, but if you're not, you should be, because they do a lot of work for the small towns. So, Jean?
Speaking of membership, I've gotten a couple of encouragements to join the National League of Cities. Are other folks members?
CCM has pushed hard on that the last couple of years. For a small town, to be frank, I don't see the benefit of it for the
Yeah,
cost.
is anybody a member? Like, do they?
I think Torrington is, well,
Yeah.
was at one point.
But, you know, CCM works in concert with National League of Cities, and I've looked at what they offer. And it's more than we need as a town our size or probably your size, so.
And Mike, anything on virtual net metering? Did you hear any legislation?
I did not.
I doubt it's going anywhere, but
I don't believe it was. I think that I did have something on that, but I believe it was in my debt pile. But let me just take a look and I'll reach out to you. So,
you're already reside there for about 5 million.
See, Gordon leave us?
Yeah, looks like you dropped out.
Okay. Well, the next item, I have to appoint a nominating committee. And I was looking at people who were in the room who were not on the executive committee, and they're getting to be fewer and fewer. So what I would like to do is to ask Jim, Jean, and Chris to be the nominating committee. Jean, you can share that one since you're, I can look directly across, see Chris start off and then go. I will say that I have been chairman between the Litchfield Hills County elected officials on this one. I've way overstayed my leave. I think I'm probably not in accordance with the bylaws there, so I will not be staying on. Typically, people move up. Henry, I've talked to him, he would be interested in moving up. Michael, you would then, we can do the success, but talk to the people who are on the executive committee and on the current officers, and the process is you report back at the next meeting. We also open up the floor to nominations beyond what the nominating committee recommends. And at the June meeting, we elect officers for the coming year in the executive committee. So there's 4 officers plus 3 at-large members of the executive committee. So, typically people get to stay on if they want to, unless we decide they've been doing a really lousy job. But so Jean, if you could talk to Chris Johnstone and Jim Brinton and come up with a recommendation.
Sure.
And a lot of times you can talk to people sitting around the table and say, you want to continue or not, and it makes it an easy job.
And no pressure, but it's a 3-week turnaround before next meeting.
Okay, administrative items. I'll let you run us down through the list there.
All right, there's a number of steps that came through recently after a period of no steps that were coming through. Under STIP amendments 1 through 4, replacing traffic control signals at various locations in the region. That's a new project that's been added to the STIP. Amendments 5 through 9. This has to do with the 5311 program, and that's to move. It's basically to move that program, or move the fiscal year 22 carryover increase, and increase the estimate from the federal share. So just a little activity right there as far as moving things around. So
we would need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And hopefully the recording.
Yeah.
Make the motion.
yeah.
I think, Henry, did you make that motion?
I did. And I seconded.
Eugene
Okay.
seconded, okay.
And then just a quick note on that. If anybody has any questions about where those traffic signals are, just let me know. I can provide information.
Yeah, you could send that out, because I know Dan was interested in that too, for the market,
Yeah.
where those signals.
Okay, next one is minutes of the March 20.
Motion to
10th.
move.
Second.
Is there any discussion, corrections?
Just correction of my last name, are 2 A's and a P.
Oh,
Apple.
I knew that.
I remember.
That's how I try to tell people.
Okay, any other discussion or corrections?
Who was the second on that one? I did. Sure.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Next up, financial statements for.
Motion to move the financial statements.
Second.
Any discussion? Rob, it looks like you still have money to spend. Hasn't gone bankrupt yet.
No, we're going the other way.
Already handsome
Yeah,
reserve fund.
We're doing okay.
Well, we're doing okay because we're also not paying 2 people.
Right.
That doesn't hurt not paying. All right, all in favor? All right, any motion first?
We made the motion.
Yeah.
So
Mike made it.
Yeah, we might.
Second.
Oh, is there you? Okay, sorry about that. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay, the equipment collaborative rates. Motion to approve.
That's just a 3% increase.
So moved.
It's only the ones I read, that's all right.
I'll second it.
Any questions on that? All in favor?
Sorry, who was the second on that?
Right. Kate Rock said it. Put one of us down.
Any opposed? Extensions? Our last thing is authorization of bid for reclamation chip sealing. I guess that came out of the meeting of the road supervisors.
I make the motion authorize the bid.
I'll second it.
Okay, Rob, anything to add to that?
No, the full depth reclamation, that apparently the state stopped bidding that, so there was a request from some members. Garrett Harlow from Goshen specifically to have the COG basically come forward with some options, basically, so like we do with some of the other debt.
Do we need to commit a certain amount of tons for that, or does it just go out to bid and then let towns sign on as they see fit?
Exactly, just provide, just like we do with the regional engineers, basically provide options that they can explore. And then the chip seal is something I think that was looking in the past files, that was floated around 2010 or 11. Never, I don't think anything ever happened with it, but there's been a renewed interest in that.
So Rob, with the, it's okay to ask a question.
Sure, go ahead.
With the chip seal, are you looking to have the COG go out and get bids for chip sealing?
Yeah, basically, we would solicit bids, responses, and basically take that and pretty much provide multiple providers that the towns can then choose from without having to go individually, each town having to go through that process. It's actually been very well received by the road supervisors, especially with salt and plow blades and things like that.
Any other questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Any other business? Motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second. I second.
Have we had any updates on when we're gonna have a household hazardous waste day?
Oh, no, that's.
Yeah, that's
get a lot of calls about that.
the next one is, I'm gonna look at my calendar here. I think it's the first Saturday in June. I was just talking with Sarah about that because we have to get the ball rolling on that as soon as possible. It is June 4th, Saturday, first Saturday. And that one's gonna be at Falls Village, Public Works Garage, 8:30 a.m. to 12. It's a shorter session than what we have in the fall.
Are you gonna have a flyer for that?
Yeah, we gotta put all that together,
Okay.
and there's been some, few vendors talking about propane tanks, and it's,
Mhm.
yeah, there's just so much time that
Yeah.
I can tackle. So
I'm
hopefully,
with you. Yeah.
hopefully we can start spreading this work around.
Yeah.
Is that open to any COG town, because we're HRRA?
I think it's only, towns that have participated. I don't know if it's, I'd have to look into that, recycle advisory committee towns, or,
Oh, yeah, we don't,
yeah.
because we're HRRA.
Yeah, I know Burlington, Norway. is a
Yeah,
part of it.
yeah, we have our own very robust schedule,
Yeah.
but sometimes people
Yeah.
see, you know,
Yeah,
Brookfield.
although the
all
last
those
one,
Closer to Brookfield.
kind of ended up with us, but.
Any other questions before we adjourn? Now we'll do more.
Someone.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Oh, by the way,
We have an executive committee right now as soon as.
right, please, thank you Denise for bringing the Dunkin'
Oh, yeah.
Donuts. Please take anything and everything, because the only person here is gonna be left is to drink coffee.
And I can't eat Dunkin' Donut, it doesn't matter.
All right, thank you guys. Thank you.